Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Painless Universal in conversation with myself and Welsh. Today's conversation is really focused on the healing process pain. A lot of us have been really affected in one way or the other from the pandemic. We've been affected by loss, we've been affected by loss of job, our marriages might have been affected, our relationship, our mental health, so many things might have been affected from the pandemic. My guest today will be talking about the healing process pain and how to recover and find your joy again. Let me tell you a little bit about my guest. Her name is Stephenie Zamora. Stephenie is the founder of the Stephenie Zamora Media. At this organization, they are making bold claims and promises to build the future of the life, the purpose development. They've been merging the worlds of personal development, healing, digital media, branding, and online marketing to help individuals build passion-based lives and businesses. They work with people who are struggling to rise up and come back in the aftermath of loss, trauma, depression, and other big transition. She's so passionate about helping individuals just being themselves again. Because sometimes when bad things happen, it doesn't matter what shape or form it happens in. It takes courage, it takes sheer determination, it takes that willingness to become painless. And they do just that. They've been working in this space for a long time. So I'll be asking her the vital question. What is the healing process? How do you get a person who's totally down get back up? And what led her mostly on this very journey? Meet our guest, Stephenie. Well, hello everyone again. Welcome to Painless Universal. As I said in the introduction, Stephenie is here to talk about the healing process pain. Before we get into all of that, let's know a little bit about who Stephenie is. Stephenie, how are you today?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me.
I am so glad. I'm really delighted you took the time out. Your topic is, it will touch so many people. This time, especially with everything that's gone on with the pandemic, so many people have either lost jobs or lost loved ones. And also the struggle of just even getting back to life again. It's just getting back to doing what we all love. People are thinking, oh, how do I get back? That healing process is that something that needs to be dealt with at this time. But before we go into all of that, can you just tell us a little bit about who are you?
Yeah, I always say purpose is my purpose. And I have kind of been exploring what is my purpose and what is even purpose in this world. For my entire life, I was definitely someone that felt like I didn't belong. I was born at the wrong time on the wrong planet. And so I've spent most of my life growing up trying to figure out who am I and what am I really here to do? And what is my contribution? And my work has unfolded very organically from that. I started out as a graphic designer doing brand strategy and website work and really loved what I did, but felt deep down that it was meant to be a tool to do more in the world. And went through a quarter life crisis in my early 20s. And that started me on the path of personal development, which I had no idea there was so many coaches, so many programs, so much information to really help us uncover and discover who we are. And in that process, started coaching other women, started my first program, started coaching them around starting their own businesses when they found their passion and purpose, and ended up having a really sudden and traumatic loss when my business was at its peak at 14. And that sent me on a total tailspin of a healing journey. And it got a lot worse before it got better, but I learned so much more about how life is constantly shaping us into who we're here to be, and how do we make meaning out of these things that we go through and really allow it to help us deepen into our purpose and who we are.
I love what you said. Life is constantly shaping us because I look at my life and I always see the trips and ups and down, and I'm like, yeah, actually. And you look back and you're like, oh, probably that happened to prepare me for this next journey of my life. And I think it takes so much from one to really take that time out to really understand what this life is truly all about. When did you realize that, okay, I need to start something where I'm actually giving back, where I'm actually adding more to my purpose on this earth? When did you really, really realize that? When was that turning point for you?
Yeah, I always felt called to live my lessons out loud. I am a writer by nature, and I was always sharing and writing and blogging and putting my experience into teaching lessons for other people. And in particular, after this specific loss, I really almost fell to my knees with a plea to the universe, a prayer to anything that would hear me, that, let this be for some greater good. If I have to go through this experience, if I have to lose everything I knew to be true about myself and my life in the process, and I let this be for some greater good. And writing continued to be something that allowed me to process my own experience and start sharing in a way that really supported other people. I think the biggest thing for me was we're all going through these experiences where we're standing in the middle of our own life and something comes along that shakes the foundation beneath us. And suddenly we're completely disoriented. We don't know how to relate to ourselves or our life or our work anymore. And it's crazy making and maddening and challenging in ways that not everybody understands unless they've been through something similar. And what became really important for me was to help people understand you're not crazy, you're not alone, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. And oftentimes it gets worse before it gets better. But that doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong. That doesn't mean that you're not healing. Oftentimes it needs to get worse so that we can really feel through and process everything. So we're able to step into what's coming next for us. And so it felt even more important to create
Mm.
an experience and a body of work and a conversation that just lets people know nothing's wrong. It's horrible and that's okay. And you're going to get through it.
And that's true though, because a lot of times we always have this self doubt within ourselves that it's never going to be okay. That this is it. I mean, I'm stuck in this hole. I'm never getting out. Not realizing this might just be preparing you for that next stage. But my question is something I'm really interested in. I see sometimes see life as a puzzle, and 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 with puzzles, we need to piece them together. And with people, that comes with experience. In the pain of loss, trauma, depression, other big life transition, how would you get someone who's going through that become a profitable entrepreneur to understand that where you're going, it doesn't matter, it might be your business, it might be any kind of pain, it might be the tragic loss of someone. How would you get that person to process this, to fix that puzzle, to be able to go into that next stage of their life?
That's a great question. And it's obviously different for everyone. I always say that my work is process oriented for that reason. But some of the core pillar pieces are really knowing who, excuse me, getting to know who you've become in the aftermath of what you've been through. Because again, we have to go through this reorienting process of I am no longer the person I was before. Whatever happened, happened. And I think we're all collectively going through a version of that right now with what's going on in the world. And so you have to be able to release your attachment to who you were before and the idea of what your life was supposed to look like, what your work was supposed to look like, what path you were walking. And it doesn't mean that you won't do something similar. I certainly am doing very similar work to what I was doing before. It's just richer and deeper. But you can't navigate into what's next until you really know who you are and who you're becoming. And that requires a lot of surrender and a lot of death and rebirth and a lot of building a relationship with your emotions. So much of what I teach is in order to do this work, in order to really heal and grow and make impossible things happen, like become a profitable entrepreneur after you've been through the craziest and most challenging of experiences, you really have to have a relationship with your emotions, because if we're not processing what we're feeling in a healthy and productive way, it gets stored in our body, it metastasizes, it makes us sick, it affects our brain, it affects our creativity. And we can't be fully expressed in one way, such as your work or your art or your creativity, if you're shutting down all of these contractive emotions and experiences. And so we have to work with our emotions and process them. And then it's really a matter of reorienting. That's something I speak a lot about, which is, again, who am I now and who am I becoming? And what about my life and my work still resonates for me? And how can I really create a safe space for myself and in the world so that I can show up fully expressed, so I can share my message the way it's meant to be shared and do my work the way that only I can. And so it's very much an ongoing unfolding and a surrender process, and really being willing to open into what's next for us. I personally had to pull down 7 years of content, all of my websites, my programs, everything I'd written, so that what was next could come through. And I have been more fulfilled, more profitable, more successful because of it. But again, it's not without those death and rebirth periods, those dips, those hard moments.
Oh, I like that. I like that what you just said, because a lot of people are always scared to let go. You just said I pulled down the old content, what I've written, and a lot of people, that is the biggest fear. They're like, oh, I need to still hang on to that because in case A doesn't work, I could run to this. But sometimes you just have to let's start the road afresh in a clean slate, it's clean manner. And that drives me on to your own journey of your own healing, because every time we do something or we take on our passion, it stems from what has happened to us. When you were going through your own journey of the anxiety, depression, and those loss, did you know in yourself that you wanted that change? Did anything feel ready? Because I'm just asking on behalf of others who are going through that change right now. Did anything feel ready within yourself to say, look, I have to take this step to help myself through this healing process? I have to do it for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Right before my loss, I went through an experience of, excuse me, I went through an experience of feeling like I was approaching a great awakening. So there was this sense already in my life that things were going to change, that I was ready to show up more fully expressed, that I was ready to deepen into my purpose and really show up and serve people. And of course, I had no idea what that meant or what would be asked of me in order to make that happen. And there was this part of me that when the loss happened, when the PTSD set in, when everything began to unravel afterwards with my business, with my health, with my finances, with my relationships, there was this sense of complete surrender. And I think having done so much personal growth work before, what I went through really helped. But I just knew instinctively that resisting what was happening wasn't going to serve me. And I had wanted to expand. I had wanted to grow. I had wanted to become more of myself. And if that meant going through this grief and healing journey, then I was really open to it. And I think that's what's so important is it's not necessarily that everything that happens in our life is divinely timed or inspired. I believe that everything happens for a reason. Much of that is a divine agreement beforehand, and some of it's simply human. And what's most important is that we take advantage of this incredible skill we have as humans, which is to make meaning. We are meaning making machines. And so regardless of why something happened, I think that's somewhere we can get stuck. It's really about what is the meaning I'm going to make from this? And having already felt like I wanted more, I wanted to create more for myself and my work and have a greater impact, that was the meaning I took from it. What can I learn and how can I share what I'm going through for other people? And so for anyone who's going through something really challenging or a big life transition, what is the meaning that you are going to choose to make from it, regardless of why it happened? And how can you allow it to shape you in ways that are really fruitful for both yourself and others?
Oh, yeah, that's true. You're an author. You're not just saying this. You've also put down your mouth to your pen and written down. You released your second book called Unwrap. And how does this book complement your first book, Awesome Life Tips?
That's a
So,
great question. I love that question because I would say, I wrote Awesome Life Tips 6 months before my loss, before my world turned upside down. And after my loss, I ended up in a very abusive and toxic relationship because of the PTSD. And my partner at the time would try to read to me from my tips book. And I love my tips book. I believe in every word that's in it, but it didn't resonate for me anymore because it was definitely more of a lighter, softer approach to, being who you're here to be and living a life that you love and finding your purpose and passions. And so when I wrote Unravel, I would say it was quite a contrast to Awesome Life Tips because it was my personal experience and journey. It was a memoir. And it goes into the heart of everything I went through and felt and experienced and everything I had to do to really claw my way back from the depths of grief and trauma. And I actually released a second Awesome Life Tips book after that, after Unravel, that's for the dark night of the soul. And so I would say they're really reflections of different points in my own journey, and that's part of the reorienting process is I still love my book. Every word I wrote in Awesome Life Tips was true and relevant. But you'll see with the following books, it really reflects everything I learned.
The books that I've read, the first one is really sweet and nice and, a nice, relaxing read. So I wanted to know, definitely the difference. So in doing what you do, it definitely requires some passion. And I wanted to know, what is that passion that you need to become so successful?
Really have to know what lights you up. And that's the distinction. I have specific talents. Everyone has specific talents and skills and things that they're good at. But Danielle Laporte has a really great quote, which is, be careful what you're good at. You could end up doing it for years. And so you have to know what really lights you up, because when we're in our joy and we feel most fulfilled and aligned and fully expressed, and we are creating, that is when we're going to find the most success. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen instantly or overnight. It definitely can still take work, it can still take time and intention and effort. But when we're most in our joy, that is when the world reflects back to us like, yes, you're doing what you're here to do. This is your contribution. And it exponentially increases. So gratitude is one of the most powerful frequencies we have access to. When we are grateful and when we are in joy and we feel love, we are vibrating at the highest frequency, which means it's easier to attract the things that we want and the opportunities that we want. And I have found that in my own life, when I really prioritize my joy, when I write and create the things that I want to create, and when I live my life how I feel like I'm here to live it, and I just share that with others, that is when I get the most opportunities, the most new clients, just the best work comes out of me. And so it's really about just yourself. What am I truly lit up by? What is my passion? What do I feel called to do, regardless of what other people think I should do, because I'm good at it?
Yeah. It's hard because I think what you just said is really amazing, because it's true. You could do your passion. Sometimes you get stuck at it and you're not making any move, you're not making any headway, and you're stuck. And then it comes to a point where you have to define the boundaries. What are the boundaries? Get moving on and get to do something, and then to utilize your time. And I think this is where your healing thing, because that healing also stems in when you love something too much. You also have to heal from letting go of letting others take on that role. And for me, it's also a big thing, because there's something you're so passionate and you could do it off the top of your head. But if it means others could do it, why not let them do it? So I think this is where you really stand out for me, because you really identify those key things. And as a life and business coach, one of the things people find most challenging, especially with behaviors, are the things that we hold back, because a lot of things we hold back, we're not freely, so sadly, so if someone's parents or loved one pass away, you hold that feeling, you're not able to communicate. And many people want to have that dialogue, but the thing is that they're always scared, or even if you've lost your job, you're always scared. If I say something to someone, they might say this about me. How do you deal with those kind of healing process to get over that hump of not holding back? How do you heal from not holding back? Should I put it that way?
Yes, that is such a fabulous question. And I know this is something that a lot of people worry about. I certainly have had fear around sharing so vulnerably, specifically around the Unravel book, because it's my journey. It's what I did, what I lived through. There's no other way to write it than what actually happened. And my next memoir will be very similar experiences I've had with relationship trauma and healing and being who I'm here to be despite all of that. And for me, I have always come back to why am I doing this and who is it really for? The people that get mad at me and send me hate emails or comments, it's not for them. It's triggering something in them. And even with family and friends, you know, I've written things that I knew would be hurtful or hard or upsetting for people in my life. And I had to really think about and unravel, especially, you know, why am I writing this and who is it for? It's not for my family to feel better about everything that happened. It's for someone who's really deep in their journey that needs that support and that confirmation that they're not doing it wrong, that they're right where they need to be, and that healing takes time. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it's always been anchoring into who is this really for? And something I tell my clients quite a bit, do it for the people that you don't think are listening. You know, we get so caught up in engagement and comments and followers and all the numbers. And I have found my audience is a quiet audience. They lurk, and sometimes they lurk for years. And I will get emails or messages years after posting or sharing something with someone saying, you know, I read this article and it saved my life, or it made me realize X, Y, and Z. And I could have very easily back then said, no one cares what I have to say. I'm not getting enough engagement or comments or whatever. And it's why am I doing this? I'm doing this to serve people and help people. And so I always say, do it for the ones that aren't listening, because people are always listening.
Yeah. Before I let you go, I have to ask, how do you find your joys? What a key tip if someone's looking out there to try and find their own joy, meaning of life? What are your key tips for someone to do to help them find their joy?
Yes, follow what speaks to your soul. And if you're not as clear, I think passion has been a lot clearer for me, the things that I'm really drawn to do. I always say follow your whims. And whims are often dismissed because they seem so random and they're confusing. They don't necessarily mean it's the thing that you're supposed to be doing. So if you're a lawyer and you hate what you do and suddenly you feel an urge to go ride horses or paint, that doesn't mean that that's your purpose and that's what you're supposed to be doing. It just means it's going to lead you to someone, towards something, so that you can have an experience that helps further shapes you and allows you to grow. And so if you just keep following those whims and those nudges, they don't have to make any sense. They don't have to be rational or understandable or explainable. Especially they won't be to the people around you, but just keep leaning in. And again, allowing things to unfold, surrendering, releasing your grip, releasing your attachment to, I have to know what my passion is. I have to know what my purpose is, and just enjoy the ride, and things unfold naturally. There's always a thread to our purpose, and it's always being revealed to us. And if we can just trust those whims and urges and callings and lean into them and be in our joy, things will become clear.
So the healing process, it does exist. We can find healing in whatever pain we're going through. Stephenie, you do agree we could definitely find that healing. It doesn't matter what pain you're going through. You just have to let the pain ride for a bit, and then you find your joy. I believe that's really what you're saying, that can happen.
Yep. And you just keep surrendering and leaning in and feeling your way through. And that's why emotions are so important, whether we're processing what's hard and what hurts, or we're following our joy and what calls at us. Our emotions are so key, and they really keep us in tune with where we're at and what we want and the path to getting there, even when it's really difficult.
It's amazing. Thank you so much for this amazing conversation. I think we learned so much, especially, with in light of everything that's gone on in the world. So many people are just looking for that healing process to heal their pain that they're going through. And I think this speaks volume. Thank you for sharing this marvelous story with us. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Thank you.